Good evening. The fourth Sunday of Lent, this is called the Sunday of Joy, and brings us to a miracle, a sign performed by Jesus. It's the healing of the man that was born blind. The stage is Jerusalem, the pool of Siloam, where all the pilgrims purify their bodies before they go up to offer sacrifices in the holy temple. The pilgrims also can worship in other places called the synagogues, and there were many of them built throughout the Holy Land and abroad. Jesus heals the blind man, and we think that that would be the end of the story, right? A happy ending. He was blind, now he's able to see, and he lived happily ever after. Nope. His healing actually is not seen as a blessing. It happened on a Sabbath. That's a problem. The parents of the man are not willing to back him up. They are not willing to defend their own son. And the Pharisees end up casting this man out of the synagogue. He was thrown out of the synagogue, the gospel says. The man born blind is canceled because he made a choice. He became a disciple of Jesus. That'll do it. When the man is brought before the Pharisees, his trial becomes a big show. In his defense, the man fires back to the Pharisees. Why do you keep asking me the same questions? You probably want to become his disciples too. And that struck a nerve in the Pharisees' hearts. The Pharisees ridiculed him and said, "You are that man's disciple. We are disciples of Moses." This is a mano a mano between disciples of Moses and disciples of Jesus. That'll do it. And the man doesn't fully understand what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, but he still believes in him because of what had just happened to him. So when Jesus heard that they had thrown him out of the synagogue, he found him and said, "Do you believe who the Son of Man is? It is I." And he said, "I do believe, Lord." And he worshipped him. The man worshipped Jesus. When this passage of the gospel was written, several decades have passed from the event. The Gospel of John was most likely written towards the end of the first century, most likely in the 90s. By that time, all the disciples of Jesus had been thrown out of the synagogue. I'm going to repeat this. By the time that this passage was written, all the disciples of Jesus had already been cast out of the synagogues. When the early Christians in apostolic times read this passage was not just the story of something that happened to this man. It was their story too, because they had also been thrown out of the synagogue. The early Christians were cast out not only from synagogues, but also from pagan temples. In some instances, from the public square. They were not allowed in public forums. All because of what? Because they became disciples of Jesus. That would do it. 2,000 years later, we face the same challenge because we too are in apostolic times. We are either disciples of Jesus or not. And if we are, we cannot be disciples of someone else or of something else. The powers of the culture of today want us to bend the knee at the current trends of society, lest we be cast out and canceled. We will not do it, and we cannot do it, because we are disciples of Jesus. Whose disciples are we? Disciples of the world? Disciples of the current culture? Or are we truly disciples of Jesus? The story of the blind man that recovered his sight is not just his story. It's my story. It's our story. Today at Mass, as we bend the knee before the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings, we do the same act of adoration the healed man did in front of Jesus. And as he did to the man, Jesus so asks us once again, do you believe in the Son of Man? I do believe, Lord. And so we worship him. Amen.